Good morning and welcome to this week's Jump discussion. Marketing. It's one of the biggest topics on recruitment's lips, and we get asked questions about this all the time. Is it about likes? Is it about hits? When today we're actually going to look at the facts of what actually marketing is all about, and does it add value to your sales line? This week we're joined by Robert Woodford, the founder of the Marketing Junction. So before I introduce him formally, I'm going to go through some stats. We've all got some stats about marketing, what's happening. And it's interesting this year, I sort of looked at this year's stats compared to last year's. So 79% of job seekers have used social media in their job search last year. 85% of candidates trust online reviews as much as personal recommendation. 81% of job seekers want more opportunities listed on Facebook. 89% of recruitment prospects will already know if they want to talk to your agency before they even call you because of what you've put on social media. 19% of prospects want to connect with a recruiter when they are still researching their brand, and 33% of email recipients open emails based on the subject line. Only 57% of recruitment agencies rely on data, and I still find that figure quite high, when making recruitment marketing decisions, but only 30% actually increased their marketing spend last year. Recruitment marketing efforts lead to a 45% reduction in cost per hire. So think about that if your clients are doing that. And the average job seeker spends 13 hours and 40 minutes online searching for a job. We know the most popular medias for recruitment is LinkedIn at 94%, Facebook at 79%, and Twitter at 66%. And the last thing before I sort of introduce Robert is your employer brand is a reflection of your recruitment processes, recruitment tools, and recruitment team, and most job seekers take time to research potential employers before deciding to apply, and that includes researching you. In turn, then building a reputable employer's brand will earn you 50% more qualified candidates, and that came out of, I think that came out from one of the Harvard reviews from there. So ladies and gents, let's introduce Robert Woodford. Robert started his career in recruitment back in 2002 as a marketing planner for Reed. He's worked as a marketeer for Brook Street, Manpower, Randstad, the Kellen Group, City Tech, before opening his own business in 2014, the Marketing Junction. In his own words, I love recruitment marketing, so nothing is more enjoyable than taking for some what is the dark art of marketing and making it super transparent for his clients to understand their needs. So, Robert, that's what we hope you're going to do today for us. Put some light on the dark arts of recruitment marketing. Also joined by Heather and Dave, as always. So, Robert, I say this every week for some reason. I'm going to ask the easiest question first, but usually it's never the easiest question.
It's never the easiest question first, Robert.
So the question is, in your opinion, how important is marketing to the modern recruitment business? And what do you think the industry as a whole sees, or do you think the industry as a whole sees it that way? And I think Robert has just disappeared on us.
Oh.
He has. Robert has just disappeared, everyone. So that's a great start from our point of view. So, Dave, let's sort of jump into us as Robert probably re-signs himself back in. Let's just talk very quickly. How important do you think marketing is to modern recruitment businesses, and do you think the whole industry sees it in that way?
Well, I'm going to say it's vital, and I hope that when Robert comes back, he says the same thing. Otherwise, I'll look like a chump. But I think back in the day, we used to have a title of sales and marketing person, or we used to have sales director and marketing director. And to me, they are absolutely aligned. And I think the stats that you read out at the beginning, Howard, show that. If our job seekers, if our candidates and our clients are spending so much time online, then how we market ourselves as individuals, how we market our brand as a company, absolutely matters in terms of engagement, which leads to sales and connections and then placements.
So I think Robert's back with us. Robert, can you hear us now?
Yeah, apologies. I have no idea what happened there. It chucked me out. So
It chucked you out.
you said you want to ask me a question, and then I just did. Yeah.
Okay, so let's restate the question then. Dave's just started to try the answer, and he's worried that he's going to feel like a chump in case your answer is different to his. But we'll see how it goes from there. So, in your opinion, how important is marketing to the modern recruitment business, and do you think the industry as a whole sees it that way?
It's really interesting, actually, because obviously I'm going to say yes because I'm in recruitment marketing, and that's what my business is. So it'd be a bit odd to say anything other than that. But yeah, I mean, you gave all those stats at the beginning, Howard, and they are absolutely spot on. And I think in terms of the modern recruitment business and the way people are accessing recruitment businesses, there needs to be a high element of marketing. There needs to be a high element of branding, and recruitment marketing feeds into that. And I think and I've noticed over the last, say, 4 or 5 years, people have really started to come to terms with that and really understanding that. I think where recruitment marketeers as a whole let themselves down, and this is why not necessarily the industry always fully understands it, is because sometimes as a collective we don't focus on the right things. So there's a lot of marketers out there who are focusing on, does it look pretty, are the colors nice, is it sparkly? And that's not really, for me, what recruitment marketing is about. Recruitment marketing is about, how can we drive sales, how can we get that return on investment, how can we support the consultants to go out and do a good job in terms of their marketing. And I think we've got to start with the recruitment marketeers to get them in that frame of mind so that they can start going out and be evangelical about how they can add value, rather than it being seen as a back office function. So it's all about aligning ourselves with sales. And I think once you align yourself with sales properly, then actually recruitment marketing adds huge value across the piece.
So it's interesting. I think a lot of clients struggle with that. How do you align marketing with sales, and don't understand what marketing and sales alignment actually is to do that. And I think one of the questions that we always get asked is, whenever we discuss marketing with our clients, the first question we get asked is, how do you measure the success of marketing overall? So, how do you set KPIs, or what's the expected ROI based on a marketing budget? So when you look at that, how do you measure, what your success is going to be with the marketing strategies that you put into place?
The first things people do really simply is actually have their marketing sat in sales rather than next to the finance department or in IT. Often, when larger businesses, I've been stuck completely away from sales to be, and this feeds into the point about how you measure marketing. Actually, if your marketing person is sat amongst sales, is part of the sales meetings, is part of, understands what's going on, then actually some of those metrics that's very difficult to track, it actually becomes useful. And I think, people become obsessed with this whole, what's my return on investment? And we do to a point. I often throw it back and say, what's the return on investment of having a telephony system? And none of your clients will know what the return on investment from having their telephony system is, but they know they have to have a telephony system. And what a lot of businesses do is they let themselves become paralyzed by, I don't know what the return on investment from my marketing is, so therefore I'm not going to do anything. And that, as I say, that paralyzes them somewhat. So there are loads of different things you can use to track, and I suppose how much time you want to invest in tracking it, it depends on the size of the business. A larger business is going to hire somebody who's got a large part of their role is tracking, whereas if you're a small business and you've only got one marketing person, then really tracking it has to be at a kind of a base level. But as you said at the beginning, it's not all about likes and clicks and things like that. However, I still think that they have a place and they are valuable. It's just you need to make sure that when you display those, you're analysing them properly. So if you're growing your follower base and if you're getting more engagement, that's a positive thing, provided you're getting the right types of followers. Because I could go out and spend $10 and get you a load of goat herders from Azerbaijan following you. That's not going to help, right? But if you're growing it, if you're in IT and there's a load of IT people following you, then actually that does help. So and we know that then filters through. So that's sort of the KPIs. Ultimately, the biggest KPI is how many placements are you making. But if we take a step back from that, if you set up your Google Analytics well on your website, what you should be doing or looking to do is trying to funnel a lot of your marketing into your website. Your website then has lots of calls to action, and you should be able to take things from that. So are you tracking, how many applications are being made? Are you tracking how many people are signing up to job alerts? Are you looking at how many people are pressing the contact us button on the website? Are you, so all those kind of action pages on your website, and if you can track those KPIs, it becomes really interesting. And you can obviously say, well, actually, we know as a result, so I was doing this for a client the other day, as a result of the social media campaigns, we can see that of everyone that comes to the website, 80% are performing some kind of action, either applying for a job, doing a job search or something like that. So that's, taking it to the next level in terms of has that placement been made is very difficult, because job boards are not necessarily interacted with everything else properly, and the technology falls down at that point. But if you can get those basic stats and set those goals up in Google Analytics, that helps. As I say, sorry.
I was going to say that, one of the questions that's just come in is instantly, do you need to accept that ROI from marketing is a mid to long term thing, and you're not going to see an instant uplift, and that's again a question that we get, that people, I've put marketing in, I've seen nothing in week one,
yeah, I mean, I can't remember the stat, but it's something like 95% of Twitter accounts become dormant after a month because people do it and then they don't see any return on it. Yeah, absolutely. It's a medium to long term, but there are things that often we can do in the short term, but that's less around driving traffic through, say, a social media campaign, or even some of the other stuff, but it might be around supporting a consultant to go out and get some sales, in terms of creating sales collateral and those types of things. And I think, and I think sometimes anecdotal evidence in terms of tracking an ROI is actually overlooked, and it is very difficult, because the loudest one always is the one that you listen to. But actually, if your consultants feel, if you're creating an environment where your consultants feel that marketing is working with them and supporting them, then actually what you find is that they are better performing consultants. Now, that is hard to track, but actually, if you say to consultants, do you feel marketing is supporting you, and they say yes, that's generally a good indication that things are going well. If they say no, or who is marketing, then you've got a problem there as well. But in the short term, yes, that, as I say, it is mostly medium to longer term, and building that. I suppose it's like building a house. You need to start with the foundations and getting those things right before you kind of start worrying where the furnishings go. But in the short term, you can look at kind of email marketing shots and those types of things that bring in sort of immediate traffic. But you're not going to suddenly start investing, £1,000 a month in marketing and get £5,000 out after, 3 days, if only.
Especially your market is goat herds and Abergais aren't. It's going to be quite a difficult one.
Yeah.
But if we start to look at that, then if you look at agencies, lots of agencies are starting to drive this inbound marketing strategy. And so the question is, how would you set that strategy up? And the question I'm sort of challenging now all of our clients is, should that strategy cover both clients and candidates?
So to answer your question, yes, it should. Preface that with, obviously each individual recruitment business has their own challenges, so you pivot to that, but you should always be making sure that your marketing is dealing with both, because when you do need to pivot, there's a lot of people who are purely focused on candidates at the moment, and they're not doing anything with clients. When the pivot comes, because it will do in recruitment, because it always does at some point, they've negated the clients and they haven't invested that. So it absolutely is important to do both. And I've got something I can share with your clients on this, which is called the Hero Hub Hygiene model, which we say is how you would set up an inbound campaign. And it's a pyramid, and it's got 3 levels. At the base of the pyramid, you've got hygiene, the middle you've got hub, and the top you've got hero. So the bottom, which is the hygiene, that's about the daily things that you're doing. It's around making sure that your social media, that making sure that your branding is there and right and spot on. It's about making sure that your social media is going out on a daily basis, that you're engaging in the correct way. It's about making sure that any automation software that you've got in place, if those automations are working behind the scenes. So it's just making sure that kind of the base level of what you should be doing on a day-to-day in terms of marketing is working and kind of churning away to kind of drive that traffic to inbound. The next is the hub, and that's kind of either monthly, weekly, depending on kind of how you set it up. Those are the types of things like email marketing shots, email newsletters. It's around blogs, infographics. So it's value-added pieces that position you as knowledgeable in your subject matter, but also provide enough information that triggers those kind of interests. And then the final bit, which is the hero piece, so kind of your big tentpole things. So they're things like salary surveys, white papers, in-depth video interviews, a podcast or something like that kind of is around. You can use as a lead capture tool, as well as kind of really generating things. And you need all of the elements. There's no point having the top of the pyramid because it'll just fall if you haven't got the other bits, and the bottom of the pyramid, well, it's not really a pyramid, is it? It's a whatever that shape is. So you need all those elements, but it's the usefulness of the pyramid is it shows how much time you should be spending on each.
So what we're saying is then lots of agencies go for that hero piece and sort of miss the first piece and the second piece completely. And what you're saying,
or they just do the basic.
Yeah. And so what we're saying is that without all three, then it's going to be hard to sort of drive any revenue or return on investment from your marketing unless you've got all three pieces working together. And I know lots of agencies sort of struggle with this. So if you look at that social media, you talk about especially LinkedIn and Facebook and now Instagram, TikTok, etc. They're becoming more powerful within the recruitment market. So when you talk about that bottom piece, then we're talking about that everyday recruitment sort of marketing, so personal branding. So we're talking, what's the difference then between that personal branding and company branding, and where should a recruitment business focus its time?
It's a really good question, and I have to say that I'm becoming more and more hateful towards personal branding or personal branding agencies that are out there at the moment. But yeah, no, look, on its basis, you've got personal branding, which is about the consultant ultimately branding themselves, or the business leader branding themselves, and then you've got the company branding, which is about kind of branding a company. And the reality is you need a bit of both, but I think it's making sure you get that balance right. So what you want to do is you want to get to a situation in terms of personal. So company branding is as it is, you're positioning yourself as experts in what you do in your niche, and espousing the values that you have, which are going to be around most recruitment businesses around being able to deliver, trustworthiness, all those kind of things. Personal branding, I suppose, and this is where companies are also getting a bit tired. You've got a lot of personal branding agencies out there that are around, going out and posting the crying selfie and those types of things, or talking endlessly about your own mental health, or those types of things, and not really actually delivering what it should be delivering. And personal branding should be aligned to the business. So it should be about, I'm a consultant that works for this technology recruitment business, therefore I'm branding myself around that. I'm talking about technology. I'm talking about those types of things that add value. I'm talking about recruitment processes. I'm talking a little bit about myself personally as well, because people like to buy into people, but I'm not solely branding myself. And I think that's where you need to get to a stage. What you don't want to do is get to the point where you're investing sometimes thousands of pounds in these branding agencies that are branding your consultant up, who then buggers off somewhere else and takes their brand with them. What you want is somebody to be working with Howard Greenwood and Jump Consultancy. It's not that I just work, I work with Howard Greenwood because he is part of Jump Consultancy, not that I work with Howard Greenwood. And I suppose that's where you've got to try and make sure you get that balance right, because then obviously if Howard Greenwood walks away, people say, well, I still work with Jump Consultancy, and I work with Heather because she has the same values and those kind of things. So I think personal branding absolutely needs to be done, and consultants need to be doing more of that. And they need to be more on social media. They need to be getting out there because that's where their audience is. But they've got to be supported to do that in the right way. And that requires actually the marketing person or the marketing function to be providing them with opportunities to go out and talk about things on their own social media, because actually where it falls down is there is a void. So you say to the consultants, right, we're all going to go out on social media, and they go, great, I don't know what to talk about. So they end up resorting to posting things that aren't necessarily relevant to what they should be doing or what the business would want. Whereas actually, if you're going, well, actually, okay, we've written a blog, post this blog out, and then we'll put it on our website as well, and we can say that you've written that. Here's some content that we've got that you can post. Actually, here are some templates within a Canva account that you can just go on and, if you're going to post a photo within this template that talks about the business template, and then post that in. So you can still do the things you need to do, but it's linking it back to the business. And that involves marketing working much more closely with the recruitment consultants. I feel like I might have rambled a bit there, but hopefully that makes sense.
No, because that makes perfect sense to me. That, again, I was with a client yesterday, we were talking about some of these big PR branding agencies and how it's become almost sycophantic with regards to what they're pushing out, and it's almost lost a business message. There's no business message there. And what you're saying is that your personal branding and your corporate branding needs to be very much intertwined, and there must be a link between the two. If you're just going to put the crying emoji constantly up there, what's that got to do with the business? And I think that's a bit that lots of recruitment agencies struggle with, about allowing their staff the freedom to build their own personal brand, but don't actually link it back to their corporate business. It's their brand that they're building. And I think what you're saying there is that you should be intertwining that process to ensure that brand does become just as powerful. Because it's interesting that we all know that your personal profile on LinkedIn is far more personal than the company profile. So is there something that we should be doing to build the corporate brand more to help intertwine that with the personal branding?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we always say, look, if I share something on a company page for any of our clients, it'll get a level of interaction. But if we ensure that the consultants are sharing it, it just grows exponentially in terms of that level of interaction. And that's because they've got stuff, they've got that relationship. And look, if I post a picture of my dog, I'm going to get more interaction than if I post a picture or something to do with recruitment marketing. But you have to look at actually who is it that's liking those things as well, because often it's, if you interrogate who's liking those things, and people just go off on likes and go, yeah, it's reached this whole audience. But actually, we did this thing with a client recently, one man business, and he was saying, oh yeah, I've got this great personal brand. But actually, when you looked at it, the people that were watching his videos and all his tips and those things that he was spending so much money and time in, because he got this personal branding agency involved, they weren't people that he needed for his business. He works in a very kind of niche area within finance, in investment banking, and he had loads of young girls following him because he was an attractive young man, and he's putting out these things about how he, about these things he does at the weekend in terms of his sports and things. So, there was just complete mismatch between who he was online and kind of, that's taking it to probably an nth degree, but absolutely, you need to make sure that the two are working in tandem together, and that often falls down to the marketing person to ensure that that's happening.
Because I, again, that was part of the question yesterday, that I'm not a big believer in growing hundreds and thousands of followers. It's about growing true followers who actually, when they interact with you, there is an opportunity that you are going to either sell something or they're going to require something from you. And that sort of leads when you start to think about, you're working there with a one-person brand. When you're setting up a marketing strategy for a client or even an existing client, what would you focus on first, and what expectations do you set with that person or with that company?
So it actually starts with it's actually the same for everybody, although there's obviously slightly different nuances in it. So the first thing you look at is actually, what do you want to achieve? Why are you doing this? Often some people say we need marketing, and it's like, well, what do you want to achieve? I don't know, we just need marketing. You need to know what you want to achieve first of all, and then you need to look at kind of what resources do you currently have, and are they fit for purpose? And that involves looking at your marketing person. That also involves looking at your tech stack, and it also looks at kind of your recruitment consultants as a whole as well, and what they're good at and what they're not good at. I think that's really important, that you look at that first of all. And then once you know what the business is hoping to achieve, and then kind of what resources you've currently got, you can start building out the plan based on the Hero Hub hygiene model that I spoke about before, that kind of really kind of says, that this is kind of what we're going to be focusing on in these areas to drive revenue. I'm a great believer in, when you start a marketing strategy, you don't look at rebranding, you don't look at getting a new website. Say don't, very rarely do you, because actually they're not the things that you should be doing. You should be getting under the skin of the business, seeing what works, starting to drive some revenue before you start jumping into a kind of a rebrand or something like that. So you kind of you look at those and then build out from the Hero Hub hygiene model, and you put in what you need to see achieve, and what you want to achieve, and in terms of kind of those returns on investment, or those KPIs. Even if you don't hit them, it's at the benchmark to guide yourself through and to measure yourself against. That's really important, that you have something like that, because otherwise you can't say what's success. Now, you might not hit something to begin with, but that's fine as long as there's a reason why. But I think you do need that. But I think going back to the strategy point of view, it's also then making sure, how do you disseminate that across the business? How are you going to make sure that you take people on that journey with you? Because often what you'll have is, certainly a small to medium-sized business, you'll have the CEO, MD bought into what you're doing. You'll have a few consultants probably at the bottom rung bought into what you're doing, because they can sort of see but it's kind of that middle element that possibly isn't so bought in. So how are you going to disseminate that strategy out? So often it's where's the low-hanging fruit? Where can we make some immediate gains? And that's around, looking at your sales collateral. Are there things we can be doing to support your consultants when they go out? Because if the first thing we do is say, right, we're going to get you all tweeting now, or we're getting you all to write blogs, they're just going to go, no, we're not doing that, and it falls down. So it's kind of what's manageable for that business, and then looking at the tech stack, and what actually tech do we need now to deliver that? So do we need automation software? Do we need an email marketing software? Do we need something like Pager? And again, ultimately, for where we're headed is our marketing function, whatever that looks like, whether it's outsourced, whether it's in-house, is that fit for purpose for what we need? Because if that isn't right, then the rest of it isn't going to follow through.
So it's interesting, isn't it, when you start to think about that you're right, that the people that invest in marketing are usually the people at the top of the business that see that they need to invest in it, so they're forcing themselves to invest in it. The younger people in the generation, they invest quite heavily because it's second nature to them, that they're posting on social media, etc. It's that middle group, that's the big problem. We talk to this about clients all the time, but we've put Pager and we've put this in and no one uses it, etc. In fact, we could look at our business the same. I use Pager an awful lot, and some of the people in Jump don't use Pager at all. And it's how do you get people to use that and understand the quality of that? So if you start to think about that in a different type of way, there's so many sort of different marketings, from branding, social media to email. You talked about your pyramid there. what do you think then is the best blended approach to ensure that you get a return on investment from, marketing, branding, social media, PR, etc.?
Yeah, so we would always say, so ultimately what we're trying to do is we're trying to drive traffic back to the website. If that's the main goal, drive traffic back to the website or back to a recruitment consultant. So what we need to be doing is, find where most people are is they're on LinkedIn. So let's have a LinkedIn strategy. At the same time, so that's LinkedIn strategy is going to be around daily postings. It's going to be around making sure that we're getting our blogs out, that we're getting our information out there, that we're engaging with on there. Then also look at email marketing. Now that can take the form very basic in terms of things like a newsletter, but also it could be more in depth in terms of your automation software. So you might set up different automation. So things like, there's Force 24, here official bullhorn automation. Now those types of things that I'm sort of talking about, that, or Luxo and that type of thing, building those kind of communication channels out, and where do they look? Where do they work? They're the first things that I would look at getting up and running, kind of getting some consistency going, because that's where it falls down most. It's around that consistency. You need to be consistent before you start seeing returns in the medium term. So how can we get that consistency up? And then it's then thinking about what type of content do we need to be posting that's relevant to our audience. And sometimes we'll know that instinctively, and other times it might be some trial and error. And that's okay. If you try something and it doesn't work, that's fine, as long as you've tried it for the right reason. So they're probably the two things I would do first off, is set up some kind of email communication schedule, depending on how that looks, that's right for your business, and your social media setup first of all, and really get that going and interacting with your audience. And also breaking things down by audience type. So often what people do is they'll go, right, we're going to send something to clients and we're going to send something to candidates. But actually your clients are broken down. Presumably most businesses we work with are the same. They're broken down, line manager, HR, and even then you might break it down even further. And actually what an HR person wants to hear about is very different to what a line manager wants to hear about. So it's making sure when you're building out your content plan, you're hitting all the points of everyone that you're wanting to speak to. So you're not just talking about, if I'm, again, let's talk about Java development, say, for example, if I'm a Java consultant, I'm not just talking about Java. I'm also talking about kind of HR issues. I'm also talking about, diversity and those types of things that tick the boxes for the HR people who will also be making some kind of decisions. But also I'm talking about the market in terms of Java development and technology as well. So it's just making sure you're kind of hitting as many people as you can initially with some good quality content.
So when you think about that, obviously lots of people now have really up-to-date CRMs where you can segment clients into those brackets that you're talking about. Would you then consider doing separate marketing campaigns, email campaigns to each individual bracket within that business, or would you still do a generic one right across the board?
No, we always encourage our clients to go as ultra niche as possible. Now, it doesn't mean you're having to create completely separate communications. It could be as simple as creating if you're doing an HR related one, for example, and you deal with lots of sectors, you might say HR issues in the pharmaceutical industry, and it might be exactly the same as your HR issues in oil and gas. It's just you've changed oil and gas in the picture at the top, so it could be as basic as that. But and there will always be some transferable content, but absolutely, if we see much better response rates, we're talking about kind of 300% better response rates if something is niche and people feel it's targeted than if it's generic. So if you're sending something generic out, which you might do once in a while if it's sort of a generic update on something, but if it's ultra niche, you're getting a much better response. And I think people think, well, I'd much rather spend 2 hours, 3 hours putting something together and sending it to thousands of people rather than spending 2 or 3 hours putting something together and sending it to 60 people. But actually what you'll find is you spend the time putting something ultra niche together, and you're consistent in doing that, eventually you'll see far better returns, because people will read it because they think it's of interest to them. You know, if I send something out that's about recruitment and marketing to kind of CEOs, they're a lot more likely to engage in something I put out, rather than if I just send them something that talks generally about, you know, kind of the general economy and whatever it might be, because it's too vague.
So what we've got to move on from, because it's again what I see quite a lot from recruitment agencies is obviously they're posting their jobs, but they're on posting, you know, how to write a CV, how to pass an interview, here are 5 interview questions, etc., etc. You know, what you're saying is really that only encapsulates a very small part of the market that's actually looking for a job at that moment in time, and you're negating the rest of your market, where you should be engaging with the rest of your market with more detailed, more niche, you know, articles that actually prick their interest and create a desire for them to come and talk to you, because you're then becoming the key person of influence within your marketplace, rather than just generic recruitment. This is about us, look at us, we're happy. You want something a little bit more laser focused.
Absolutely. There's a lot of guff that gets sent out, and it just doesn't get traction, and it's a really important point. We see this with kind of e-shots that we run for a lot of our clients, that, you know, if it's ultra niche, and you can tell actually from the unsubscribe rates, if you're sending out an e-shot, for example, if you're sending something out, you might not be getting fantastic response, or you think you might not be getting fantastic response. But if you're getting a low unsubscribe rate, what that means is people are happy for it to drop into their inbox. They might not be reading it, they might not be engaging with it necessarily, but they're happy for it to drop into their inbox. At some point in time, they're going to need to use a recruitment business, and you're going to be front and center, because it's all about being you know, in the psychology of it. We all know that if you need to use something and you're not sure where to go, you don't really Google it. Nobody goes on and types, where's my nearest IT recruitment consultancy? They'll say, oh, I remember I get something from X recruitment consultancy that talks about kind of these issues, where are they? That type of thing. So it's about kind of building those relationships over time, rather than, you know, you will still get the, you know, bam, thank you, you know, that's hit the right time, but actually it's about building that medium to longer term relationship over time, and you're seen as a partner. And I think it's, as well, it's about making sure that when you're going out, the temptation is, when we create these e-shots, the temptation is the consultants or the businesses want to plaster them with loads of sales messages, and people don't want that. People are savvy enough. If I send you something out the blue about recruitment marketing, you don't need me to put, oh, by the way, we're a marketing agency for recruitment businesses, and this is what we do, and blah, 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 because you're savvy enough to realize I'm not just sending you something because I'm friendly. You know, I'm sending you something because ultimately I'm, you know, it's part of my account, and people get that. I think if people feel that there's this constant sell, they rile against it.
So I understand that, and there's some great words. I mean, John's come out with, I've just used it laser focus, and then you sent a little message in laser focus, but tat and guff that people are sending out. You know, some great sort of marketing words there. You know, is this tat, or is this or is this guff? You know, what's going on?
And I know John very well. So,
yeah.
So yeah, I think we have similar vocabulary and things like that.
So here's a difficult question then, and this is a question again that we get asked quite a lot. You know, if you look at businesses, how would you set, because bear in mind, you've talked about, you've got one-man bands, you've got businesses that are large, etc. How would you set a marketing budget? Would it be per head, percentage turnover? How would you set a marketing budget?
Well, I'd probably get them to set it with a lot to outside agencies. But I probably, you know, generally speaking, what we say is on average, and it isn't only an average, about 3 to 4% of turnover is what most businesses are spending on marketing. Now, obviously, if you are a smaller business, that could be slightly more. Or if you're going through a particular project, again, you might want to spend, you know, obviously if you're doing a website project or a rebrand, you're going to have some money there. But generally speaking, it's around 3 to 4%. I think, but often it's that figure can seem quite arbitrary. For us, it's about kind of, we never want people to spend as much as more than they have to on marketing. It might sound odd because marketeers have got if you can spend it, do spend it, but we know that we can spend your budget faster than a consultant can make it. So it's around making sure that what you invest in, you're getting value from, and it's not always the best thing to go. So if I'm looking at investing in a website, for example, yes, I could go and get a website done for 30 quid off Fiverr or something, but it's going to be crap, and actually you're going to end up spending again and again and again. It's not going to deliver. So you're better off saying, well, look, this is going to be a pot of money that we need to put towards it, but then what are the returns we need to get off the back of it to make that pay? So it is difficult, and I get why it's difficult, and I can't really give somebody a specific answer without looking at their individual circumstances. But generally, as I say, it's around 4%. But it's, look at what you can do for free. When I say for free, I mean with your in-house resources or your marketing agency, first of all, before you look at spending shed loads of money on things. It's easier when you're looking at things like job boards, to track things like your ROI. But, I would argue that you should spend as much as you possibly can on your marketing that you're comfortable to do. Obviously, you're not going to spend ridiculous sums.
So if people walked away and said, right, I'm going to look at my gross profit and I take 3% of my gross profit, the question that we started off with, or one of the first questions we started off with, is what would you expect as an ROI from that investment? So if I was investing 30K, what would I expect from that investment?
So it would depend what you're investing it in. So if you're investing, because obviously, it depends what your marketing budget covers. But if I'm investing it in job boards, then I expect, £10 for every £1 I spend on a job board. That's what you should be aiming at as an average. If you're looking at, I'm investing some of that in an email marketing software, well, then eventually, initially very little. But then eventually, we're seeing people getting returns of, it's ridiculous percentages of amount, because so ultimately what you want to, the average that people receive return on their investment from is around the region of about £5 for every £1 spent. It roughly that you can tangibly say is down to marketing. But of course, we know then that probably you've got 3 times as much of that, because you can't measure it. You can't measure it. So what you're saying is, what you can measure, you're expecting, for every £1 you invest, you're going to get another you get £5 back off that pound. Yeah. So the question that we alluded to earlier on, and I think Karen Deep starts to sort of push on that, how long would you wait then to start to see a return on your investment? Because that's the bit, you talked about, how many Twitter handles are defunct after a year because people just don't want to carry on doing it. So how long do you wait to see whether your marketing is actually working or not, and it's bringing back that, for every pound it's bringing back another 5 to you? It's a really good question, and it does vary depending on market actually, and other kind of things. But generally speaking, you would look to start to see something within 6 months. Now, it could be earlier, and sometimes it's slightly later. But if you say around 6 months, because that means you've got everything in place, you're working things through, you're embedding the culture. It gives you time to kind of generate that. If you're putting stuff out once a month, it's only 6 months worth of stuff, right? So it's not a huge amount of time. But you should start to see things turning through. Now, obviously, it's also where you track it, because if you're in an industry where 3-month notice periods are the norm, and it takes you 4 months to bring on something, you're already at 7 months. So it can take longer. But generally speaking, if you say around 6 months, you should be starting to see a change. That change might not be numerical necessarily, but but much sooner than that, you should be starting to see a change within the organization in terms of being marketing led and people understanding their roles within that.
Okay, so recruitment, we're known for being quick fire, aren't we? We know, we've got a high turnover rate in that first year. Consultants aren't working after 2-3 months, right? Bang, off you go. So how would you then talk to an agency and you're saying don't expect any money coming back for 6 months, how would you convince an agency then to spend that type of money on a budgeting where they're going to see no return for 6 months?
And it's conversations we have all the time, and it's not necessarily they won't see the money, but it's hard to see it, if that makes sense. But I suppose if they are really, sometimes we do say to people, well, you're not ready to invest in marketing, because if you're wanting if you're going to be agitated after a month that you're not seeing anything back, then you're not, and you can't see the medium to longer term, then it might be that you're just not ready in your cycle to start investing that. And there might be other challenges you've got within your business that you need to address first of all. So it's not necessarily saying that everything is right, people, but I think it's just what we generally tend to do is share with them examples of things that we've done and clients we've worked with. And I know a couple of your clients who are on this talk now, and we've kind of worked through things. And the first few months was about working closely with the CEO and MD to really kind of set up where we're wanting to go with the marketing. If they think that we're going to just come in, we want to come in and work closely with the business. And I think if we're coming in and working closely with the business, then actually you've got that comfort blanket that you're seeing what's happening, you're knowing what's going on. We can share with you sort of mini successes and those types of things. But if you're just going, right, come back in 6 months' time, or come, it doesn't work like that. You need to be engaged as an owner and a manager as well. But yeah, it's the hardest thing of what we do is trying to persuade people, because it's also, the reality is most business owners are ex-recruitment consultants. I can't think of a single recruitment business owner who was an ex-marketing person. So many people just don't get marketing or understand it, so they feel like they're out their comfort zone, which is why they hang on to this ROI. So actually a lot of it is just working through with them, having conversations, helping them understand it, and being sympathetic to that fact, rather than a lot of marketing people, certainly on some of the chats I'm on, will snarl at recruitment agency owners and almost be sarcastic. But actually, if you don't get it, you don't get it. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's working with you on that and helping you there and educating you, and holding your hand through that process. And that's fine.
So what we're saying then is that marketing is a necessity now within all of recruitment, and the more we invest into it, the better it will be. But we shouldn't be expecting a quick, magic wand, and all of a sudden we put a marketing strategy in it. It suddenly brings, £5 for every £1 that we've invested into that. And the big thing that we've got to have is that blended approach of, all types of different marketing to make sure that we hit the clients. So the final question is, and it is the final question, it's a question that I'm going to sort of throw in there. So for those Luddites that are in recruitment, that don't, even though they've got as much investment into marketing, that don't do any investment into marketing, I'm not pointing at anybody here, how would you get them to suddenly see the light and realize that they should be doing marketing, they should be putting things out, they should be posting things, they should be putting their own personal brand and incorporating that with the company brand? How would you get those people to start to invest in marketing? Because really what it is, it's about investing in themselves.
Yeah. First of all, I'd say, well, look at your competitors and are they doing it? And if they're doing it, there's probably a reason why they're doing it, right? They're not going to be just spending money on this stuff just for the sake of it. So that's one thing. Second thing is just have a conversation with somebody in a market, somebody like me, or somebody, like John's here, speak to those types of people that are in the industry that just will have an off the record conversation and kind of, share ideas and help you through that process to understand, because actually, that's where actually you'll start to feel a lot more comfortable. And then you don't have to jump in with both feet. Let's try something a bit bite-sized to begin with. Actually say, well, look, why don't we just look at doing X, whatever that might be, and starting slowly. We don't have to come in with a whole kind of bells and whistles marketing campaign, but let's start kind of where the pain points are, and actually having that conversation around the fact of marketing isn't something that is done to your business, it is done with your business to help push sales. So it's all around kind of those modes of communication. And I think, that's where it falls does fall down a lot, because a lot of marketing people can't have those conversations, you know, and don't really necessarily understand the realities of what running a recruitment business is like. And, you know, I get it, you know, marketing isn't the first thing on your list. You know, you've got your IT system, and you've got kind of finance, making sure that's running properly, and making sure you're paying your contractors and all those kind of things, as well as our sales delivering. You know, marketing, it just can be a bit overwhelming. So actually just, you know, just make time to have those conversations, set time apart in the diary, and start to think about it slowly. And then over time, you'll get to the position whereby actually you're ready to give it a go.
Robert, I think there's been some really interesting points that you've made all the way through this, and I hope that people have sort of have taken those points on, have listened and picked up on that, because I do think marketing has got a huge place to play and will become more of the stalwart of recruitment as time goes by. So thank you very much for your input. It's been much appreciated. Next week, we're going to talk about new school versus old school. So selling recruitment solutions. So looking at what we're doing with marketing, how you market those solutions out, but also is, you know, old school versus new school, what's working, what can we do? So join us next week. Robert, once again, thank you very much. It's been much appreciated. Dave, Heather, thanks for your input as always. And guys and girls, we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you very much.
Thanks
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Cheers, everybody. Thank you.